Hello, I'm Dr. Aaron Lewis. I'm running for governor for the state of Connecticut, and I'm here today in this press conference to deal with an extremely serious matter, probably the most serious matter as it relates to voting and the voting process, particularly here in the state of Connecticut, and that's ballot access, the entire process of ballot access in our state for all parties that they deem as minor parties or petitioning parties is a skewed process, and the process is skewed to prevent anyone other than the Democrat or the Republican party from being on the ballot. What does that mean to the actual person who wants to go and vote for a person that they believe in? It means that you don't have a choice. They don't give you that choice. They won't allow you the choice to actually vote for what you believe in, vote for your values, and then you're pigeonholed and forced to vote for someone that you really do not believe in. You don't believe in their values, you don't believe in their policies, but they give you no other choices, and it's an actual intentional process and an intentional problem. Even today, we're on the steps of the Capitol here in the great city of Hartford, Connecticut, and more than 16 media outlets were invited to be here on today. I'm gonna say that again, more than 16 media outlets was invited to be here today. NBC, ABC, CBS, they were all invited to be here on today, but to the point that I'm making, the process has become so skewed, it has become so corrupted that they are not even allowed to give proper press that will help the voter to make a uniformed and reasonable decision about voting. So they don't want you to know what the options are. It's another form of voter suppression, but in 2022. And so we're on the whole process of fighting all the way to the end. We're suing the Secretary of State. And I have here my attorney in that process. We're suing the Secretary of State for this entire process. It's an egregious process. It's a wrong process. Unfortunately, the average voter has no idea what's going on. So then you go to the polls in November and vote for the ones that the state gave you. It's really a form of totalitarianism. The state gives you, they give you who to vote for, and it's their choice, not your choice. And it hasn't been your choice in a very long time. It's been their choice. And the ones that they don't want to be out in the forefront, the ones that they want to try to suppress, they do everything in their power to make sure that we don't have a voice. And that's why you can invite 16 media outlets, not for shine or not for attention, but to talk about a process that's germane to the people of Connecticut. Your vote, every single citizen in this state, a state of more than 3.3 million people, every single person in this state who votes has the right to vote for the person that they deem viable, the person that they deem competent, the person that they deem trustworthy, the person that they deem aligns with their values. But the way that our Secretary of State system is set up, they remove that from you. And when they remove that from you, they don't give the voter any options whatsoever, because at this point, I'm totally convinced that the options come from the State House. It comes from this State House, and the options that they give you are the ones that will continue to control our lives in perpetuity. And that's something that we're suing the state against, so that we can have options that otherwise would not be had. But I have some tremendous people here that are also running for public office. Dr. Amy Chai, and she's going to, just for a moment, speak to the process as well.
Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Chai, and I'm running as an independent for Congress in Connecticut's 3rd District. I've learned so much in the last several months about how our government conspires to suppress the voices of the people. In America, our government is supposed to be of the people, by the people, and for the people. But it has become a government that is of the party, by the party, and for the party's cronies. And this is codified right here in this Capitol building. This building that is run by a single party, the Democrats, who suppress even the voices of Democrats who maybe aren't quite in lockstep with the platform that's been decided in advance that they must follow. We here in this group of people, and many of us across the state, 41% of the electorate of the state of Connecticut is either unaffiliated or independent, libertarian or green. These people represent the largest voting demographic in the state of Connecticut, and these voices are being suppressed. Their choices, their candidates are being removed from the ballot by fiat of the Secretary of State of Connecticut. People need to be outraged by this. I know I'm outraged by this. I'm a citizen, I'm a taxpayer, I'm a physician. I'm sacrificing a great deal to be in this race, and I know that Dr. Lewis is doing the same. Why is it that our voices are not heard? The people that we want to represent are not being heard. That's not just our voices being taken away. That's the voices of 41% of the Connecticut electorate.
That's true.
So consider the fact that if you vote third party, if everyone votes third party that is unaffiliated, these third party candidates would win in a landslide. But the major parties don't want you to know that. And they do everything in their power to stop you from knowing that. So I would next like to introduce a candidate for the position of Secretary of State who is not affiliated with either major party. And her name is Attorney Cynthia Jennings.
Thank you, Dr. Chai. And I'm here to support Dr. Aaron Lewis because what's happened in his election is that, number one, ballot access has been denied. When I say ballot access, I simply mean the rights of the people that are voters have not been able to have a choice of whoever they would like to have vote for in a representative form of government. The people that you elect represent you, and it would seem that they would stand behind those individuals who support their values and their interests. Well, that's not what's happening here. Right now, Dr. Lewis has received over 9,000 signatures. First of all, as Secretary of the State, I oppose the process for people being excluded from the ballot in a discriminatory way, such as requiring that if you are a registered voter, which is all it takes for you to run for most offices in the state of Connecticut, you be a registered voter and you're allowed to run for office. But then you're also added the extra burden of, if you run for office, then you must get X number of votes. And it's determined by the legislature how many votes that you would have, how many signatures that you would have to get on a petition in order to run. Mm-hmm. For me to run, if I were running as an individual and I'm running on a party that's not the one of the major two parties, then I would be required to get 7,500 signatures, which means you're probably going to have to get between 9,000 and 10,000 signatures in order for me to go on the ballot. And Dr. Lewis was faced with that same thing. All right, so during COVID, 2020, March 2020, COVID legislative initiatives started, and they were put out by the governor, executive orders. One of the things that should have been done was that there should have been electronic signatures so that people did not have to go door to door to collect signatures. And that way it would have been a more fair and just process. Those people who were registered to vote would give an electronic signature if they wanted to support Dr. Lewis or myself or Dr. Chai. if you wanted to support any candidate that's running outside in the party, that's outside of the Democratic or the Republican Party, then you would have to get these signatures. But you could use your electronic signature. The banks accept electronic signatures. There is no reason for the state of Connecticut to not accept electronic signatures for petitioning. There is no reason whatsoever. But except to discriminate or to exclude people who are running for office that have a right, an absolute right to run. So just because in addition to ballot access, I also support recall vote. In Connecticut, if you elect someone who violates the public trust, who steals money, it's their choice as to whether or not they step down. It's not the people who elected you to say that you can't serve in that capacity anymore. So you can violate the public trust and still be in a situation where you absolutely do not have to step down from your position. You can keep your position and you can continue to violate the public trust. So that's just another issue that we have to deal with. There are also the referendum initiatives. In Connecticut, if the legislature is a little slow in coming up with what you wanted to vote on, in California, they do referendum initiatives all the time. It means that the people come up with a law and the people have a right to vote for the laws that they want to vote for. That is not happening in Connecticut. So it's against the Connecticut Constitution to have early voting, which means that if you're running for, if you want to vote for someone running for office, you have 1 day out of an entire election period. It might be 1 day out of 4 years, out of 2 years. You have 1 day that you have to go and vote. And everyone in the state has to vote on that 1 day, or your vote will not be accepted. So when you're talking about 4 states out of all the states in the country, Connecticut is one of 4 states whose constitution says you cannot have early balloting. Even the southern states will start, you get 2 weeks to go and vote. So we don't have that in Connecticut. We have a totally draconian, unjust system that it continues to suppress the votes of people who pay taxes in this state. So I think that if there's nothing else that we do today, it's take note of this lawsuit that is being filed and make sure that you understand that it's your rights that are being taken away as well. So I thank you, Dr. Lewis, for doing what you do in terms of bringing a lawsuit. As Secretary of the State, should I be elected Secretary of the State, I will be 100% behind changing the process that we have now and making sure that every voter that's eligible to vote in Connecticut is allowed to vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Next up is a former state representative. He's also my running mate for Lieutenant Governor. And many of you all already know him, Kevin Allen.
Thank you.
Come on and speak.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Doctor. Thank you for everyone in attendance. And thank you for letting me be a part of this. And, one of the, introductions is I am a former state representative. I served in the 45th House seat, 1 term. I was a previous 2-term municipal leader. So I understand what this government system here in Connecticut is like. I've been a Republican since the age of 18. And up until this summer when I met Dr. Aaron Lewis, and I really started to get introduced to the corruption on both the Republican and Democratic side. I want to be very clear. This is not a criticism of one party only. This is a criticism of the parties in Connecticut and across this country. Just a week ago, I was up in Boston outside of the City Hall speaking very similar issues. Right up there, the suppression of voters, the suppression of the party systems taking control, the swell across this country. We see great candidates being suppressed by their own parties. They're calling them extreme party candidates, like right here in Connecticut. They want to say that because we can't fit in as a Republican or an independent or a libertarian into their system, we don't have a chance to be heard, to have a voice for the people. This is exactly why Dr. Aaron Lewis is doing what he's doing, and it's exactly why I left the Republican Party in Connecticut, because of its corruption at the very top. Ben Proto, step down today. Step down today and stop trying to serve the people of Connecticut's Republican Party, because you're not serving them correctly. In fact, if anything, you're destroying the Republican Party in Connecticut, because within that party, it's not just you rich people. By the way, the Barbie and Kens who travel around in buses, traveling throughout the state of Connecticut, trying to convince its people that they're like them. I didn't see a lot of likeness in those people as they travel throughout Connecticut. I don't see a lot of the diversity that they claim they are fighting for.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's true.
And so let's face it, I sit here and I look like a clown to some of you because I got a cowboy hat in Connecticut. Well, guess what? It's who I am. And we all fit in together as who we are.
Right.
Individually, we bring differences of opinions. I'm stepping right up here with this beautiful woman. I said, I like Dominic Rapini, but I like you too, but I still like Dominic Rapini. It's okay.
Yeah.
We can get together and be together as one unified voice of accepting us as each other, not the fact that we have to be a Democrat and Republican. See, I think the two-party system has done one really major problem to us as Americans. It's allowed the corporate media to carry their water and to deliver the messaging to divide this country.
Wow.
And folks, right here today, on this very steps, when the only black man who is running for governor in Connecticut is standing right here and has announced his 16 media companies, outlets in this state, and they don't arrive, guess what? What do we have to call? A Black Lives Matters march and have some tearing down of property on Columbus Day?
Wow.
We're at the state capitol, folks.
Wow.
And they're not even here.
Wow.
Now I'm just going to summarize like this because it is
powerful.
Dr. Aaron Lewis's day. I
That's
100%
powerful.
support him.
It's our day.
100% support this team. I 100% support us to be heard, be seen, and be on the ballot. And folks, let me also warn you of this. 2022 is the beginning. This is just the beginning. You have stirred the hornet's nest.
Yes.
And you will regret the day that you did.
Yes.
I promise each and
That's
every
so
one
true.
of you that has tried to obstruct the process for Dr. Aaron Lewis and many other candidates. We will expose you. And by the way, if you're a Republican right now serving in Connecticut, you're not welcome on my show until you apologize on bent knee. Period.
Yeah.
That's how it goes, okay? I don't care what you say. Because I'm sick and tired of how you guys all play your game. Democrats are welcome, but you Republicans, you bunch of phony balonies. There's a few of you I'll let back on, but you know what I'm saying. The reality is, folks, we have to do this together. And you know what? If you're a Democrat right now and you're listening to this and you're saying, well, golly gee, well, what's he talking about? What I'm talking about is we're more alike than we're apart, folks.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, there's about 80% of the things we deal with in this country that we agree on as independents, Democrats, Republicans, libertarians, everything. All we have to do is find a way. But you can't find a way when you're being denied access.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to do. Make sure you let Aaron Lewis get on the ballot. Make sure you encourage your legislators to force people to do the right thing before this election, and make sure that we hear Dr. Aaron Lewis heard and seen on November 8th. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin Allen. And next, we're going to have the attorney my attorney that filed the lawsuit against the Secretary of State in this matter, Tricia Linday.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. It's an honor to stand here today as the attorney who has filed to deal with what is voter suppression in Connecticut, because that is exactly what's going on. Understand that if the ballot is controlled, the votes are controlled.
Yes.
Yeah.
Connecticut is demonstrating and trying to show that it's a two-party system. It's the Democrats and Republicans, but I say that it's a one-party system, because though they differ on many issues, on this issue they come together to bar out every other candidate and to control the votes of the people, the citizens of Connecticut, and that is an issue. The voting rights, equal voting rights has been an issue in America since the beginning of time. There has been bloodshed, there has been lives lost in order for average citizens to have the right to vote, to have a seat at the table, to harness their political power and to participate in the political process in this country, to decide who they think represents their values and their morals and who they agree with on many issues. That is being decided by the one-party system that is composed of the Democrats and the Republicans. The petitioning laws in Connecticut, which is what our lawsuit is challenging, are, when taken as a whole, invidiously discriminatory because they are written by the Republicans and the Democrats,
Exactly.
the ones that they claim to be the quote-unquote major parties. The interesting thing is that if the minor parties, quote-unquote minor parties, were given equal access to the ballot, those two major parties would very, very quickly become a minor party, or the minor parties would very quickly become a major party. And so it's interesting how when that term minor shows up, there's always discrimination.
That's right.
That's right next to it. There's
That's
always
so
discrimination because the minor parties are being relegated and being required to fulfill certain requirements that the major parties are not, which is ridiculous. In essence, minor parties would literally, under the petitioning laws, would literally have to get 164,000 raw signatures in order just to gain access to the ballot. What does that mean? What does that mean? And in COVID, it's completely ridiculous and it's hard. The laws are unduly burdensome. They are cumbersome. They are discriminatory, and they represent zero state interest. They represent the interests of the Democrats and the Republicans. And that interest is to keep candidates off the ballot, as is demonstrated by the lawsuit that Bob Stefanowski filed the other day to get the one black, actually the independent candidate, Robert Hodelin, off of the ballot for a gubernatorial candidate because he lost in a race against him, in a dispute that he lost and came up as the loser. And so he took him to court and challenged to remove him from the ballot. Of course, thank God that they landed before a judge who understands the Constitution and dismissed the case and said it's nonsense. But that demonstrates how much and the extent to which these parties will go to keep minor party candidates off the ballot. We cannot allow this to happen. Voting rights is not something to take lightly. The candidate that is in office controls what happens in your communities, in the state. They control your lives, and we cannot allow this. This is something that the people of Connecticut have to step up and stand up about. They have to reach out to the legislators. They have to flood the Secretary of State's office and demand that the minor party candidates be given equal access to the ballot. As a matter of fact, the process is such that the deadline by which the ballots are supposed to be printed are in September. We're in October and the ballots have not been printed. Dr. Lewis has not been able to get a list of the candidates that have been placed on the ballot. And so by the time this happened back in 2008 with Barr, not Stefanowski, Barr, when he challenged when the Secretary of State erroneously disqualified a number of signatures off of his petition, which left him off the ballot. But by the time the district court ruled, it was October 23rd, thereabout, and they said at that time there was impossibility. They were dealing with the impossibility, and so they could not do anything to get him on the ballot at that time. So the way that the laws are set up, it doesn't even leave room for any deficiencies to be redressed. So if Dr. Lewis or any of the minor parties were to receive information from the Secretary of State and they were to disqualify and say that certain signatures were no longer good and they were invalidated, or there was any other deficiencies with their process and what they did to meet the requirements of Section 9 of the Connecticut General Statutes, there is no time between that deadline in September and the November 8th election period in order to fix whatever is deficient in order to make it to the ballot. Right. And that in itself is a problem. It's a problem. So I say to the citizens of Connecticut, we cannot take this lightly. The enfranchisement that has happened over the years to give people equal access to the ballot, to give voters their right to make sure that they have access to the voting process and to the political table has been eroded over the years. And we're dealing with challenges that we really should not be dealing with in 2022. But it's something that has to be dealt with, and that is what our lawsuit is about. And I ask everyone to go on and pull up the lawsuit, read the claims, see what's happening, and keep abreast of what's happening, because we are challenging this and we're not going to let it go. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all for coming out and being a part of this experience, but definitely make sure that you make some noise, whether it's tweeting it, go on Facebook, Instagram, and let it be known. Let people know that you want a real voice, not the voice that they give you. And definitely do your research. Stop being blinded to this draconian process because we're going to win, but we got to fight to win. Just like Frederick Douglass says that, freedom is not free. We've got to fight for this until we get what it is that we deserve. So thank you again. God bless you and God bless America.